She's
I'm not sure
accusing
why
us.
one would expect somebody to do that.
Point is, she's accusing us of shopping, right? When we're actually the people who've investigated, right, the arguments, right? She hasn't investigated anything, right? She just shoots her mouth off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then when she's challenged, it turns out that she's talking out of her ass.
Right. That's what I do.
Now, can you?
Yep. That's what I do.
Am I wrong? So you reject labor theory of value. You have an argument against it. Can you even say what the theory is?
Yeah, it's circular.
Tell me what the labor theory of value is. Right. What is?
Right. That the cobbler sitting at his last imbues the value into the shoe.
What's value on the theory?
It's a substance, right? That's what Marx literally says. That it's a substance that it gets.
How does he define it? How does he define what?
So do you think that there's a substance called value, Jack?
He's asking you how Marx defines value.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a substance of value? That it's a thing?
So again,
I'll repeat the question, right? How does Marx define value, right? If you think you know that the labor theory of value is wrong, presumably you know what the labor theory of value is. So presumably you know how, right? How Marx defines Brenda. Now you're just going to dodge, right? Or you're going to leave the room, right? But what we're not going to get is an informed answer, because if you do answer, you're going to flunk, right? Because you don't know fuck all about the theory, right? Just like you don't know fuck all about Fodor's argument, right? And just like you don't have any kind of an answer, right, to our objection about adaptationist explanations, right? But then you accuse us of Lysenkoism when you're just talking out of your ass, right? So I'll repeat the question. How does Marx define value?
Well, you guys kind of are Lysenkoists.
Yeah, that's pretty much what you're doing, right? You're trying to make room for your political ideology, right?
Yeah. So
that's
again,
what you're doing.
The issue on the table is, right, that I'm contending that you don't know fuck all about the labor theory of value, right? And so that's why I've asked you, how does Marx define value? Because presumably if the theory is wrong, you know what the theory is, right? Presumably if you know that the theory is wrong, right, you know what the fucking theory is, right? So I'm asking you, how does Marx define value?
Yeah, the value, so the value of a commodity is proportional to the amount of labor that it takes to make it.
No, you flunked. You flunked, right? You fucking dumbass, right? You don't even know what you're fucking talking about, right? Now here's the question, right? Why do you do this? Why do you shoot your fucking mouth off
so the value
about stuff that you don't? Oh, so you're gonna try again? You're gonna try to correct yourself? You're gonna see if you can make a second pass at it and get it right this time?
Yeah, this must be that high level intellect that I'm interested in here.
I asked you, right, what value is on the theory, right? And you gave a wrong answer, right? You couldn't be bothered to read even a fucking single book about the subject, right? Before you rejected it, right, Brenda?
I don't understand why.
Yeah, I don't read books about astrology. I don't read books about astrology either.
Yeah, well, that's begging the question, Brenda, right? Either you've got an argument against the theory or you don't, right? Now you want to claim, right, that it's like astrology, right? Well, the thing is, when we want to show that astrology is wrong, right, we can cite a standard argument that discredits it. Right?
Twins don't share a fate, for example.
So if the labor theory of value were true,
what's the standard argument that discredits the labor theory of value?
Well, if the labor theory of value was true, then the selling price of things would have to be related proportionally to the usefulness in production, and it isn't.
Why?
It just isn't.
Why would that follow? Why would that follow, Brenda? Why would that follow? You're just pulling stuff out of your ass again?
Because the goods,
All right.
the goods produced by
humiliate.
capital are bought in the hope that they will be useful.
So what difference does that make about the selling price?
Anyway.
Yeah, anyway. Let's just stop pretending, right, that you aren't talking out of your ass, right? When you are.
It's just.
And when you
So do you think that this
people,
is going to be? Do you think this is going to be a fruitful line for you?
Yeah.
I
When
don't
you
know what you
accuse
mean.
people, when you accuse people of going shopping for their ideology, right?
I think
you're
almost
actually
everybody does that, including probably even myself. I think almost everybody does it.
Probably. There's nobody who does it more than you. Right?
I don't. Yeah. It's sort of a problem.
Okay. Yeah. So now here's the real question, right?
Just go shopping for the metaphysical philosophy that best comports with what you think.
There's no point in having a discussion with a motivated reasoner about the actual issues, right? We're not going to get anywhere, right? Because you're just going to keep pulling stuff out of your ass, keep lying that you know what you're talking about, right? Keep pretending that you're not pulling stuff out of your ass until I ask you a simple question where you flunk, right? And then it turns out you've been exposed to pulling stuff up out of your ass, right? So let's talk about the real thing. What's the psychology behind this, right? What's the point of doing this? What's the point of not knowing anything about the topic, right? And then mouthing off about it. What's the point of that, Brenda?
So is the exchange value of something a function of its socially necessary labor time?
You want to go back to that again? You think that's not going to end with your humiliation? Because we can have that discussion if you want, right? Where I'm just going to ask you a simple question, right? Like, where's the entailment, right? And then all of a sudden there's going to be silence.
Right, because socially necessary, it becomes circular because socially necessary just importing subjective value. That's all it is.
What does socially necessary mean? How does Marx define it?
How
does Marx define it? How does he define it?
Oh, he probably gives some special super duper explanation for it. With proprietary definitions of everything, right?
So you think that it somehow discredits a theory to use proprietary definitions?
No, because they mask the circularity of the claims that are being made.
Sorry, if there's circularity, demonstrate it.
Well, socially necessary just means it's socially necessary means that it's on demand side, and that's subjective value.
You know what you did again?
You don't understand the theory at all.
You know what you just did, Brenda?
No, I don't.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what you did. You fucking flunked again. Right? Because you talked out of your ass, right? So when Marx says socially necessary labor time, right, he means the quantity of average unskilled labor time that it takes to reproduce a good at a given time or place.
Oh, you mean the labor value? So that's what labor value is. Labor value is labor value.
I said labor time.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So Marx
says that's what the labor value theory says, that the value of something is related to the time it takes to produce it. Labor takes to produce it.
Shut up while I'm talking.
Yes, I know. You need to be need to be a bully and bully people because you don't. Somebody who actually understands would just not have to go into this emotionalism.
Now, if you want to say that it's circular, right?
Yes.
Here's the claim, right? Here's the claim, idiot. Okay. What determines value on the theory is the quantity of average unskilled labor time that it takes to reproduce the good at a given time and place, right? Now, for there to be a circularity there, you need to show how there's some proposition, right, that is in the conclusion, right, that's already contained in one of the premises, right? Now, this is going to end with your blood on the wall, right? Because I'm going to ask you now to tell me where those propositions are, right, in the argument. And you're not going to be able to do it, right, Brenda? Right, Brenda?
I don't know why you do this to yourself.
There's a circularity there, Brenda? Oh, really?
Brenda, I just don't get why you do this to yourself.
Yeah, I just don't think that this is really, a very conductive to discussing things if you're going to behave this
Yeah,
way.
but like I don't
Okay, I'll
understand
tell
why
you
you
what.
think
I'm
that's
going to shut up.
sniping.
I'm going to shut up, Josh, and you talk to her, right? And we'll see, right, whether things improve, right, when somebody who's being polite, right, to a fucking liar like yourself, right? We'll see if that helps us get any closer to a discussion that's conducive, right, to something valuable.
Okay. Well, under the LTV, so if I pay 10 men $10 an hour for 10 hours to turn $1,000 worth of lumber into furniture, the LTV, says that furniture should have a value of $2,000, right? That's correct, isn't it?
I don't think so. No.
No?
I'm not.
The LTV doesn't say that? I'm pretty sure it does. You pay 10 men $10 an hour for 10 hours of work to turn $1,000 of lumber into furniture. And so then that furniture ought to be worth $2,000, right? That's what the LTV says.
I don't know what you mean when you say worth there. But let's just, I don't, like, okay, so.
Well, you have to buy lumber, right?
Sorry, excuse me. You understand that price is distinct
Really?
from value.
You're upset because I sort of barely talked over you after the way you people behave?
Excuse me. Sorry.
No, why? Why should I do that?
Excuse me. I'm trying to explain something to you.
Yeah, but
So-
why should I respect you
can
if you're
refrain
not going
from
to
having-
respect me?
Stop over talking.
This is just
Yuri,
definitely a mod.
just stay out of it, Yuri.
You can refrain from having a conversation if you want, Brenda. But I'm trying to explain something.
Well,
to you.
I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy.
Well, I don't know what I did that was hypocritical. So
Uh-huh. So the
right.
LTV says if you pay 10 men $10 an hour, they work for 10 hours, they turn $1,000 worth of lumber into furniture, the LTV would assign that furniture a value of $2,000.
I
Right?
think that I don't know where you're getting those numbers or why you think that.
So-
I don't know why you think.
I
that
guess I
labor-
just don't understand the LTV then, huh?
Yeah, I think that that's true.
And-
So the idea-
One of us doesn't.
you say worth. Yeah, that's correct. I think it's you. So when you say worth there, what do you mean when you say worth?
You buy $1,000 worth of lumber from the market. I mean,
Asking
Right.
what you think. I'm asking what you think worth means. Do you
it's
think
what the price of the lumber was on the market, right?
So it doesn't seem like you understand that price and value are distinct on the labor theory of value. Because you seem to say it's worth, that means the price is going to be such and such, right? But that's not true. And if you understood the labor theory of value, you would understand that it's not necessarily like you. It might be the case that those chairs, if they're sold by a designer, like a brand name or something, and that brand has a monopoly on those specific chair products, they could sell for $10,000 rather
Yeah.
than $2,000, and that's accounted for.
Yeah. I
And
could pay those men to turn that lumber into sawdust, right?
Okay, but I don't understand how that's relevant to what I'm saying. I'm saying
Because it means that their labor didn't give value to the sawdust. Did it?
I mean, sawdust would have to be, and it would have to take an average amount of unskilled labor time to reproduce that, and that's what the value of the sawdust would be. Now, if someone was
Sawdust
going
doesn't have
around-
value, though. That's the thing. It doesn't have value.
If it doesn't have value, then I don't even understand why we're talking about it. You can
Well,
engage-
it shows
you
a
can engage
contradiction.
in
It shows a problem because you can't use it to calculate the value of the outputs, right? You have inputs and outputs.
So it says in the first chapter of Capital, I mean, Marx goes over how you need a use value in order to have value. So I don't understand how that's a contradiction.
Yeah, that's the circularity right there. Use value is simply subjective value, isn't it? It's useful to me. If it's not useful to me, that's demand side. That's not supply side. That's demand. That's subjective.
So I don't know
And
what
therefore
you're
it's
talking
circular.
about.
Therefore it's circular.
Well, you're oscillating back and forth. First of all, the structure of your argument doesn't make any sense. First of all, you said it implies a contradiction, and then you said it's circular. But if an argument is circular, it's necessary that it's valid, because it follows that if the premises are true, then the conclusion is true. That's just what it means to be circular. So it can't be contradictory, because if it's contradictory, that means it's necessarily false. So you have something wrong.
Well, that's the definition of valid, not circular. But you're.
Well, sorry, I'm saying you can't have a valid.
I get what you're saying. Look, I get what you're saying. It's fine. Minor nitpick.
Anyway, the point is that if you need a use value, that means it solves some current human need. That's not contradictory to the labor theory of value. That's a prerequisite of the labor theory of value. That means that it might be the case that some product needs, or that values of products change from time to time, but that doesn't seem like that's...
the value of products change because people value them, right? So the value of goods is determined by the labor that's used in their production, and the value of labor is determined by the value of the goods.
You just seem like I mean, this is just a standard sort of equivocation on value. Like you're not critiquing the theory on the theory.
Where does the value come from? It comes from the demand. It doesn't come from the labor.
You're just equivocating on value.
Well, no.
Do you think that value...
Look, Brenda, if you're doing an internal critique, you would say that the price comes from the demand, not the value. That would be an internal.
That's not inconsistent with the labor theory of value, though. The labor theory of value accepts that price and value are distinct. So the price, what might come from demand, that's, in fact, Marx talks about how the price would come from demand, and the price of goods can increase because of demand. But it doesn't...
Yeah, and that's all part of the transformation problem.
But it doesn't explain why the price is what it is at equilibrium. And so that's what the labor theory of value is posited to explain. So it just seems like, again, you don't know anything about the theory, Brenda. And I don't even understand why you'd have a problem learning about it. It's like, it's completely innocuous to you. It's so weird. Like, just pick up Introduction to Marxist Economic Theory.
Yeah.
I can send you a copy for free. You could just pick it up, and then we can go through. There's tons of conceptual groundwork that's laid in that book, right? I mean, I'll read it out loud to you if you want. I don't have a problem with that. And we can go point by point, and we can talk about what propositions you disagree with. He goes all the way through historical record keeping about time being relevant even under other economies, right? In feudal economies, for example, talks about time being relevant to the labor process and how it could confer value under capitalism. So I just don't understand. I mean, if you want to understand the theory and say that it's false, it just seems like it would behoove you to actually understand what the theory says, because it seems like right now you just don't understand it at all.
So,
well, I don't take well to the kind of verbal abuse that I just got from Jack. It just puts me off on that. Yeah, so I'm simply not interested. In being nice about things. I don't really want to be nice about things anymore.
Right, but this is post hoc, Brenda, because
I don't care. I don't give a fuck.
Well, I'm saying it can't rationalize.
It's a pure motivation.
Your actions if it's occurring post hoc, right? Because this is something that was done before Jack was ever impolite to you. This type of resistance to this was done, so that can't be what rationalizes your action. That's just an excuse.
Mm-hmm. If you say so.
Well, anyway, Josh, since you're here and we're talking about the LTV, I was wondering, what's your analysis of the old wine problem, if you're willing to entertain that?
Josh, you done, Brenda?
I mean, I don't think it's gonna go much further than this.
Ace is trying to change the topic, so I just want to make sure
No.
we're
It's, I
done
mean,
with the Brenda conversation.
yeah.
Josh.
I mean, I feel more comfortable talking about Fodor's argument against natural selection than I would the LTV, but because that's more conceptually heavy. If you want to discuss that, we could discuss that also, Brenda.
Yeah, the entire field of biology just doesn't give a shit about that criticism.
I don't understand how that would be relevant because
Yeah.
Fodor
Because-
also talks about people making predictions, and that's different from theories making predictions. People can make all sorts of predictions independent of their theories, and that's because people have beliefs, but theories don't. So people can have beliefs that are undergirded by inductive inferences that aren't part of the theory of natural selection, and given that they're not part of the theory of natural selection, the theory isn't doing any of the explaining. It's the background beliefs, people like biologists, which Fodor, I mean, like Fodor will cite all of these different biologists that indirectly agree with him. And if you read, I mean, I can just read some of the quotes out to you if you want me to. Like,
yeah, sure, but it's not really, it's also sort of not that big of a deal. I mean, people just understand that, yeah, it's not a conscious selection that's going on. They understand that it's random. It's randomness. In the genetic, the genes of organisms are random, and then the environment just filters out anything that can't survive. And there's no selection going on. There's no intentionality going on. But people talk that way. People talk that way, but they just keep it in their mind that no, they're not talking about an intentional process.
So things are selected, right? They're selected, and that's just what it means for them to come to fixation in a population. That's what selection means. But there is no selection for, as you've rightly pointed out, and there's also no selection against. The theory of natural selection doesn't provide any reason to expect certain phenotypic traits over other phenotypic traits given a certain ecology. And so given that there are no laws of selection, it doesn't generate any predictions, and if it doesn't generate predictions, it can't be explanatory.
Except that they do make predictions. They do them all the time. And they do it mathematically. It's mathematical. At this point, they make it, mathematical biology is a thing.
But you think, listen, okay, so I'm aware of predator-prey foraging models and things like that that are a priori, but obviously you don't think that those are picking out anything empirical in the world because they're a priori models. Like they don't generate predictions about what we should expect to see in the world.
Biologists do, though. They do that.
Yeah, I already said that biologists do, and this is something that Fodor says too. People make predictions, right? Theories make predictions and people make predictions. And the way people make predictions is not based on the tenets of the theory of natural selection. They make predictions based on other things, which is fine, and that's okay to do. And that, I mean, you can make historical predictions that way, right? In fact, that's what people do when they talk about making predictions about historical theses that they want to support. But there's not some grand theory of history, right? There's not laws of history that people study. And I think that's what Fodor is saying, is he's saying that in that enterprise, it's largely just natural history that people are explaining. It's not the case that they are getting anything from their theory. They might mistakenly believe that they are, but they're not.
Does Fodor actually say that theories make predictions?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm being kind of loose there. They don't make predictions in the same sense that people do, but he says that they're counterfactual supporting in the same way theories are. or sorry, the same way predictions are.
Well, people don't think, and I don't think biologists or evolutionists have ever thought that if we knew everything like 3 or 4 billion years ago, we knew the initial conditions as well as you could possibly know, that we could predict how things evolved. I mean, nobody believes that.
So do you think that Fodor doesn't have a response to what you just said there? Because he does. And all it would take is one YouTube video to figure out what Fodor says there. He says, then you're not doing explanation on the biological level. If you're deriving these predictions from the chemical or the level of physics, then you're no longer at the level of biology. You're just making predictions based off of physics. But then the whole enterprise of biology is odious to that effect, right? There aren't biological laws, there are physical laws.
Natural selection depends on mutations, which are inherently random and unpredictable.
If it doesn't generate predictions, it can't be explanatory.
I'm not sure about that.
If you don't know what's going to happen, if what's going to happen in the future happens for no reason, which is what random means, how could you attempt to explain what's going to happen?
So since this topic changed to Fodor, how about we give it a change to the old wine problem of the labor theory value?
Mm-hmm.
Josh, what were your thoughts on it?
Why does the price of wine go up as it ages?
Yeah, rather than bread.
I don't know. I don't think the labor theory of value would explain why the price of wine goes up as it ages.
Yeah, so that seems like a failure of the theory over, say, the subjective theory, which explains it really simply.
No, I don't think that it's a fault in the theory, because the value, first of all, if the value of wine changes, then what we would expect is that the equilibrium price changes. But I don't think it, like I said, the labor theory of value accommodates the demand, and so it might just be that the demand of old wine is higher than the demand of new wine, but that doesn't mean that the value has changed. Like, you can assume several scenarios, right?
Yo, who wants to get on camp?
Say the value of wine remains the same across time. That doesn't mean that the price will stay the same, and so it just seems like it would be irrelevant to the theory.
Yeah, so then, I mean, demand just seems to be snuggling in a subjective notion then. And I don't think it's even demand. I mean, part of it is.
I mean, like, Marx never uses the term subjective or objective. Those aren't Marxian terms. I think that later scholars decided to talk about it in terms of subjective and objective value theory, because that was like supposed to be some sort of criticism of Marx, but it doesn't actually address anything that Marx said, right? Which is what we would predict about the value of a commodity is that when prices are at equilibrium, well,
about the subjective objective thing, can I ask you another question about that? So was it Marx that said that the labor theory of value is the laws of motion of the capitalist market, or was that someone else?
I'm pretty sure it was Marx that said that it explains the laws of motion of the capitalist system.
Okay. Okay, so Well, if that is the case, then that does seem that he's making like some kind of claim to some objective model then. But I mean, that's neither here nor there, but I just think that, you know, that would be implied by that statement.
I'm not sure, but the whole point is that whether or not it's actually a criticism of Marxist theory, which it's not clear to me that it is at all.
Well, no, but that's the whole point, is that demand would be a subjective component in the theory.
Well, the demand would explain prices, but it doesn't explain prices at equilibrium. That's the whole point. When supply is equal to demand, that's the phenomenon that calls for an explanation. So there's a question of why, when some good is at equilibrium with its demand is at equilibrium with its supply, why is the price what it is? So you can imagine the price of bread being the supply of demand is equal to the demand for bread, and you can imagine that price being different from a jet engine whose supply is also equal to its demand, right? And subjective value theory doesn't have any resources to explain why that would be, because remember, it's stipulated at the outset that the supply is equal to the demand in both cases. So the question is, why would the price be different for those commodities? And the labor theory of value says that what explains that is the average amount of unskilled labor time that it takes to reproduce those commodities. And so given that it takes more unskilled labor time to reproduce a jet engine than it does to reproduce a loaf of bread, that would explain why, when supply and demand are at equilibrium, the jet engine is at a higher price than a loaf of bread.
Okay, that makes sense.
No, I'm just giving you touches, right? Anyway, Brenda, I don't think that. I mean, I think that maybe Jack was going a little bit ham there, which is entertaining and everything, but I think that oftentimes you're sniping, and so I think that kind of warrants that type of response. You behave with hostility initially, and that's why I was.
It's pretty rich coming from you, Josh.
I don't see how.
Well, everybody in here does that. Everybody.
I mean, I'm not excusing Brenda, but
everybody in here does that. Everybody does
Jack
it.
makes strange bedfellow.
So I just don't see the problem, for one thing.
Well,
I have a problem because...
Look, I don't necessarily, let me just explain that. I don't necessarily expect good treatment except from some set of people, right? But it seems like it would be nonsensical to expect good treatment when you're just lashing out against people.
I don't expect good treatment from anybody. There isn't anybody in any Discord server where I can expect good treatment. There is one, and it isn't here, and it's a private server. There's one place where I can go. So perhaps it's simply a feeling of being, you know, people coming at me from all sides, all the time, every single day, with everything
Brenda,
I say.
If you're coming in here expecting that, like, that's like totally on you, right? You came in here to start shit. That's all you're saying then.
And Brenda, there's a lot of times, like I like you, Brenda. I honestly am like truly like appreciate when you're here, but like a lot of times, if you perceive someone on like who's on the other side of you, even if they're like being really like cordial, right? You get really kind of snippy and angry and divisive and very mean.
Why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I? Is there some reason I shouldn't do that?
Well,
you don't have any reason why I shouldn't do that. Why should I do that?
Yeah, I do. Right? You don't want to be treated that way. You're just complaining.
No. I expect people to treat me better than I treat them. Right? That's perfectly reasonable. That's just what everybody else here does. Everybody else here expects other people to treat them
Look,
better than they
do you want to
treat
be
other
treated that
people.
way, or do you not? Because it seemed like you were complaining about being treated that way.
Well, I didn't come in here expecting a fight. I came in here because something that I was doing, I'm waiting for a program to finish. And I thought I would continue with Michael, asking him simple questions that he doesn't want to answer, and his childish, immature, and dishonest reactions to it simply fuel my getting more and more aggressive. If he wants to, people, if you want to push against other people, and if you expect them to respond honestly to you, then you'd fucking better well do the same when it comes back to you. So far, Yuri and Michael simply refuse to engage. I simply ask simple questions. It's simple questions.
Treating everybody the way some people have treated you, and I'm just like letting you know that like a lot of times like I find myself on the other side of an argument with you. Sometimes on the same side, and I'll like disagree on one topic, and you'll get really mean. Like, and that's fine. Like, I don't need to be coddled, but like you can. I mean, people. You can expect to be treated that way.
There's a lot of bullshit right now. I'm just, I'm not going to deal with that kind of.
Well,
shit.
then don't complain.
There's a lot of shit going on in the chat right now, so fuck you.
Wait, what?
Excuse me?